It was a truly historic opening night for the NBA last night. If you could have got odds going into the games, would you have thought that you would have had a better shot at winning a bet for seeing the most threes made by a team or seeing a father and son play on the same court for the same team? Well, last night we almost got both, and then some. Welcome to Who Won, the podcast for the busy NBA fan who doesn't have time to watch all the games but still wants to know who won without all the hot takes and clickbait. I assume that you are new here if you are listening or watching this. What this is, briefly, is a podcast that I tested the waters on for part of last season, and I've added this video element to see how that potentially goes for the start of this season. The idea here is simple. With it seeming like all of NBA media is basically trying to drive emotions and engagement, from hot take debate shows, people yelling at each other, their opinions, and whoever's loudest wins, to, producers carefully crafting and spending hours trying to find that perfect way to position a headline or news story to really just elicit an emotional response out of people. And don't get me started on paywalls and sports talk radio and everything else that's going on right now in NBA media. It's all about transactions. It's all about the rumors. It's all about the drama. There's not really room for just information and catching up. So that's what I'm here for. If you just want to catch up and know who won the games and react along the way, you've found your right place. So with that, there were two games on the docket last night, and we will start in Boston, where the Celtics got a 132-109 win over the Knicks on ring night. And if you follow me on Twitter, it's whowon_Zach. I am trying to do a companion to this podcast, part of the channel for the YouTube watchers. What I want to do is post the schedule for the night and then my predictions of who's going to win. And so I had picked the Celtics to win this game last night. And I kind of had a stomach churn moment when I was watching ring night and that ceremony. And I was like, oh no, there's going to be an emotional hangover here. I'm going to come out of the gate just 0 for 1 because the Knicks could just run them out of the building because everybody's just so caught up in, raising the banner and getting their rings. And I could not have been more wrong to have that concern. The Celtics came out and they hit 10 threes in the first quarter. And I would say they didn't really slow down, but technically they did because they ended up hitting 29 for the game, which is it ties an NBA record for most threes made by a team in a game. And obviously, if they hit 10 in the first quarter and then 19 the rest of the game, they didn't keep up that 10 per quarter pace by technical terms. But I would say when the game mattered, they didn't slow down. They couldn't miss. They ended up 29-61, and that was drugged down pretty significantly by guys from, let's just say, the reserves in garbage time really, really wanted to be the one to hit that record-breaking three-pointer because they were hoisting left and right. Some of them even hit the rim, but it got kind of gross there for a minute. Then, they ended the game tying the record as opposed to breaking the record, which was fine with me. When the game mattered and when the starters were playing, they just were lights out. They had 7 guys on their team hit a three last night. 6 of them hit multiple threes, and everybody in the starting 5 hit at least 3 of them. That's insane. Jaylen Brown had 5 threes. Derek White had 6 threes. Jason Tatum hit 8 threes. And I want to talk about Jason Tatum for just a second. He ended the game with 37 points, 10 assists to go along with those 8 threes. And this is where you're not going to get a lot of opinion in these, contained podcast episodes. If you want opinion stuff, then watch the YouTube channel. But I did post a video following the finals and some shorts for, the shorts feed and across social media that said, essentially in my opinion, that if Jason Tatum were to unlock being a table setter, and more of a playmaker for others, then that could be one of those things that he can add to his game in addition to everything else that he already does really well that could catapult him into that true MVP contention. And I'm not going to say that you can win an MVP in the first game of the season, but having 10 assists out of the gate is not a bad start for my working theory that is kind of the thing that could be the missing piece for him. When you think of guys like Jokic and when LeBron was in MVP conversations consistently, and even Luka, who hasn't won one yet, but is, kind of the odds on, or considered in a lot of people's minds to be the favorite this year. Playmaking is a big part of their game, and that hasn't been a huge part of Tatum's game so far in his career. And if he does that this year, on top of everything else, I'm just saying, it's a possibility. On the Knicks side of things, Jalen Brunson played okay. He had 22 points. He went 9 for 14, shooting from the field, which is solid. Not a lot of other counting stats to his credit, but that was kind of the case for just about everybody. Mikal Bridges seemed to break his jumper over the offseason and did have a better second half of this game than what he started. It was a very, very slow start. He ended up shooting 7 of 13 from the field. He had 16 points. He did go 2 of 7 from 3, though. Karl Anthony Towns gave him just 12 points and 7 rebounds in his debut. They clearly weren't in a rhythm together. There was a big disparity in assists in this game. The Celtics had 33 as a team. The Knicks only had 20. And that's the kind of thing that, you hope irons out over time as these guys get used to playing together. But honestly, they shot still with all that considered 55% from the field and 37% from 3. It's not like the Knicks played that bad. They just got beat that bad. And it was a wild way for the defending champs to come out and kind of make a statement against the team that was essentially built to try to compete with them in the first game of the season and say like, hey, we're not happy with just one title together. We're looking to turn this thing into a dynasty. And, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Let's go to the Lakers against the Timberwolves, where the Lakers got a 110-103 victory. I saw a lot of this. I did not see all of this. I am in Eastern time zone and I have a day job. So sometimes staying up that late just doesn't work out. But I did see the majority of the first 3 quarters, which means I got to see the moment. And the moment that I'm talking about. During the second quarter, the Lakers had a decent lead and momentum seemed to be in their favor. LeBron had gone to the bench and you kind of had the feeling it was coming, and JJ Redick obliged. He brought LeBron back in with Bronny in the same substitution so that father and son could share the court in the NBA. And it was just awesome. And it was obviously talked about. It was a big, discussion topic, especially on the broadcast too. They didn't I don't think it was overblown though. They didn't stop the game and have a parade, right? We got a really cool moment and we got a couple of minutes of Bronny actually having, good activity. He played with energy and effort, and he tried, really hard on defense. And I don't mean try as in here's your participation trophy. I mean, he was contesting shots. He was staying in front of guys. He was, competing on the defensive end of the floor, which is, kind of what you want out of the 55th pick in the draft. If they're going to get a couple of minutes in the real games, that's ultimately what you want them doing, right? They had Ken Griffey Jr. and Ken Griffey Sr. in attendance for the game, which was cool. They took pictures together and whatnot. And they nearly had their back-to-back homer moment, right? LeBron got the ball cutting down the lane on a possession, and he just threw down a ridiculous dunk that, I say ridiculous, like for him it's completely normal. But when you consider the fact that dude is about to turn 40 and is in his 22nd year in the league, it's ridiculous that he's still doing that. And then, like, immediately following that, he fed Bronny for a three from the wing that the place was ready to explode. And Bronny just didn't hit it. If he would have hit that shot, the place would have gone nuts, and we would have had kind of that close to the Griffey moment, right? Like, there's not an equivalent 1-to-1 necessarily, but that would have sufficed. And it was very close. But for the rest of the game, because, that was it for the spectacle of it all, the rest of the game, the eye test for me when I was watching versus the numbers, now that I'm looking them up after the fact, they don't really align that much. Because when I was watching, the Lakers seemed like they were an absolute menace on the glass, particularly on the offensive glass. And it actually ended up pretty even. The Timberwolves actually out-rebounded the Lakers by, the time the buzzer sounded, 47-46. And the Lakers had 3 additional offensive rebounds, 15-12. But, it wasn't as lopsided as it felt when I was watching. What really stood out to me, though, is that LeBron didn't play particularly well. He ended the game with 16 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, a couple of blocks. He was -6 in his 34 minutes. And I would be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge what you've seen on social media, perhaps, or will see today, that he apparently broke the missed field goals attempted in a career last night. Which shouldn't be a shock. Like I said, he's in his 22nd year, and he's scored more points than anybody else in league history. So, you got to shoot to do that. And for the crowd of, Bron has no bag or whatever, he broke Kobe's record for this. Just leaving that there. But they won the game. And that's the point that is most impactful, I think, to my takeaway of this game, is that I don't have these numbers in front of me either, but last year and basically every year that LeBron has been in LA, if LeBron didn't play well or LeBron wasn't on the floor, the Lakers weren't winning. That's just a huge issue that they had, and not last night. AD put up monster stats, 36 points, 16 rebounds, 3 blocks. He went 13 of 15 from the free throw line, was really aggressive. Rui Hachimura gave them 18 points and was a clear difference maker to me. He had a couple of big dunks that I saw. He was plus 19 in 35 minutes for the game, and, that was impactful. Austin Reeves was good too, despite not shooting particularly well. He had 12 points and 9 rebounds, and he was plus 12, despite the fact that he missed all 5 of the threes that he took. So if you're a Lakers fan, that's about as good of an opening night as you could have when you didn't, shoot the lights out as a team, and LeBron wasn't dominant by any stretch of the imagination, and yet it felt convincing. They felt good, right? On the Wolves side, Anthony Edwards gave him 27 points and 6 rebounds. He did hit 5 threes. He was 10 of 25 overall from the floor, though. He also had 4 turnovers, so he didn't play bad by any stretch, but it wasn't the most efficient night for Ant. Rudy Gobert had 13 points and 14 rebounds, which is pretty much a normal Gobert stat line, while he was a -10 in those minutes. Julius Randle in his debut had 16 points and 9 rebounds, and just didn't feel like he was impactful, to put it mildly. I've seen some of the takes already this morning of people basically saying that he was just not even trying, which I'm not, this is not the, like I said, not the opinion podcast, but wasn't a big contributor. Dante DiVincenzo hit a couple of threes, but he was 2 for 8 coming off the bench from 3. They obviously made a run in the second half of this game, though, but I think it's clear that there's going to be some gelling for sure that needs to happen for this group as the season progresses. So that wraps up last night. The season really starts tonight. There are 10 games on the schedule. We've got the Pacers against the Pistons. We've got the Cavs against the Raptors. We've got the Bucks against Philly. We have the Magic and the Heat. We've got the Knicks and the Hawks, the Bulls and the Pelicans, the Hornets and the Rockets. Memphis is taking on Utah. The Warriors have Portland, and the Suns are facing off against the Clippers. And if you want to see my predictions of who I think will win those games, like I said, check out Twitter. It's who1_Zach. If you like having these catch-ups and these kind of like, in-the-moment reactions, I had a little bit more to say on these games because I watched, a lot of them. That's not going to be the case every single game because I can't watch all of them either. I have League Pass, but there's 10 games tonight. I'm not going to be able to watch them all, back to back to back and be able to, see, I don't know, however many of these are on at the exact same time. I'm going to watch as much as I can and catch up with you afterwards. So I hope you get to watch at least one of them. Go ahead and subscribe on YouTube and follow this podcast in all of the listening apps for, I don't know, hopefully the whole season.